I'm pretty sure that if you would have went to most Tennessee Titans fans before the start of the 2021 season and you told them Ryan Tannehill is not going to throw for 4,000 yards, Julio Jones is going to play 10 whopping games and not even top, 500 yards receiving? Derrick Henry is going to go beast mode like for the first 8 games and yet only play 8 games in the regular season. If I told you some of those things were going to happen, but yet the Tennessee Titans were not only able to win their division, but have the top overall seed in the AFC playoffs, I'd have to think that you'd be really, really happy and pleased with that, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you, Titans fans? Absolutely. Derrick Henry's your MVP. To go half the season without him and be able to still get the top seed in the AFC, like you're probably thinking, especially if I told you that Derrick Henry was going to come back for the playoffs, you're like, oh man, they went to the Super Bowl. They might have even won the Super Bowl. And instead, they lost in the divisional round at home to the Cincinnati Bengals of all damn teams. Like, that was just crazy. Top seed, sent home packing. Whoopsie daisies. So much for the big Julio Jones move. That was a one-and-done thing. Now he's off in Tampa. You lost Roger Saffold in free agency. Added guys like Austin Hooper and A.J. Moore. And then obviously the other big news from this offseason for the Tennessee Titans is trading away A.J. Brown. Interesting decision there. You went from the year before, we're going to trade for Julio Jones because you want another weapon in the receiving game, to now we're going to let Julio Jones go and we're going to then trade away A.J. Brown, who is the top receiver that we have, even though, to be fair, he did not have 1,000 yards receiving last year because he missed a few games with injury. Really interesting and curious choice, especially when I think about it as saying, like, if you're the Titans, you were the top seed in the AFC, you would think that you'd be trying to put more on the plate, more on the table to try and go all in. I don't believe in your team like that. Certainly don't believe in Ryan Tannehill as that level of quarterback to be able to do that. But you've got him. You've tied your wagon to him. Like, I would think you'd want to put him in as much of a situation as possible to succeed, and it doesn't feel like you're doing that here, respectfully. And you could say, well, maybe they're going to pull a Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson situation where everybody wins, like the Vikings and Bills did a few years ago with that trade. And maybe Treylon Burks is that type of guy where Titans fans aren't going to miss A.J. Brown very much, and they'll be okay with the fact that they got rid of A.J. Brown to get Treylon Burks. But that's a huge risk to sit there and trade away the proven young commodity for a young, unproven commodity. I'm just saying. But the draft, they brought in other guys like Roger McCreary, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and Malik Willis. And it's the Malik Willis drafting, honestly, that has me the most excited for the Titans. We'll see if he actually sees much of any of the field this year. Obviously, Tannehill is going to be the starter. But it sure be nice to see Malik Willis get some playing time this year, wouldn't it? I would think so. Like, for them to be able to get him where they did at the tail end of round 3, like, that's really, really nice, man. Because he's a guy that you could have in the mix, and you could say, when you're trying to think about life after Tannehill, is he part of that solution? Is he an answer to that equation? Or is he just a cheap backup that you have for the next few years? Either way, not so bad. But, man, I'd love to see what this team could do with Malik Willis getting some time. Unfortunately for the Titans, they had some bad news recently as Harold Landry tore up his knee, so it looks like he's going to be out for the season. I think he made the Pro Bowl last year, had a really good season coming off the edge. So for a Titans team that's already traded away A.J. Brown on offense, now they go into the season without one of their best defensive players. Not the right type of momentum to have going into 2022. What do I still like about this Titans team, though? Derrick Henry, obviously. Like, he is their MVP. He's a freaking monster. Like, he's the exception to the rule when it comes to the running game in the National Football League. You got a guy like Derrick Henry. he can be that freak workhorse bell cow back. He's a guy that with a couple of more seasons may end up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then you look at them defensively. Jeffrey Simmons, I think, is a stud, and he still has room to grow in his game. Their run defense was really good in 2021, and I expect it to be similarly this season. Some of the concerns I have, I look at the passing game. You don't have A.J. Brown. You added Austin Hooper. That's nice. But Austin Hooper came available for a reason. Treylon Burks is nice. But how well is he going to play right away as a rookie? That's a fair question to ask. I mean, I like his skill set. And I think he does profile as a potential number one, but it's always a risk to get rid of a more proven number one for a less proven number one. That's all I'm saying here. And then when you talk about the passing game, again, to come back to Tannehill, he's just not the type of guy that can make you a bunch of plays when you really need him in cutting time. He can make the sporadic play here and there. He can manage a game relatively well, but he's got some real Alex Smith tendencies of when you really need those big plays, you're just not going to get them out of Tannehill. And then you look at them defensively, I think their pass defense is also a question. It was last year, and how you lost Harold Landry for the year coming off the edge with his knee injury. Losing a bit of that pass rush element certainly does not help your pass defense. Looking ahead to the schedule for the Titans this year, some key games that I'm pointing to for them. Week 2, they got to go to Buffalo. That's a big matchup for the Titans. The Bills seem poised to take that top seed in the AFC. The Titans want to have a chance to get back to that top seed again in 2022. Feel like you have to beat Buffalo on the road in Week 2, which feels like a really, really daunting task. Then Week 4, you got to go to Indianapolis to take on Matt Ryan and the Colts. The Colts are going to have a different look and a different feel this year to some degree. If you're the Titans and you still want to maintain your top position in the division, that's probably a game you want to win early on. And then you look at kind of the middle of their schedule. There's a tough stretch in there for the Titans. Some of the games that they've got between weeks 9 and 13, you've got to go to Kansas City, you host Denver, you go to Green Bay, host Cincinnati, go to Philadelphia. All of them except Denver are playoff teams last year, and Denver just freaking added Russell Wilson. So that's a pretty tough stretch of games there, pretty tough stretch of schedule. And as much as it would feel like the safe pick to pick the Tennessee Titans to, return back in 2022 and win the division, I just can't do it. There's a very good chance they might win more games than I'm projecting them to. I'm projecting them to go 9-8. I just don't like this team maybe as much as some others do. I thought who they were kind of showed up in the divisional round against the Bengals, frankly. But perhaps, Treylon Burks can come in and be a big play wide receiver for them. Derrick Henry stays healthy the entire season. Maybe this team does win double-digit games, wins this division, and scares some people in the playoffs. I think they're more of a edge wildcard team that maybe could get in and with the right matchup win one playoff game. But this is not a team I feel confident about being able to make a deep playoff run.